on vaccine access donations to poorer countries.
It's the broad range of issues on which the United Kingdom and the United States are working in very close cooperation. We affirmed the special relationship, as is not said lightly, the special relationship between our people, and we renewed our commitment to defending the enduring democratic values that both our nations share, that are the strong foundation of our partnership. 80 years ago, Prime Minister Winston Churchill and President Franklin Roosevelt signed an agreement known as the Atlantic Charter. It was a statement of first principles, a promise that the United Kingdom and the United States would meet the challenges of their age and they would meet it together. Today, we build on that commitment with a revitalized Atlantic Charter, updated to reaffirm that promise while speaking directly to the key challenges of this century: cybersecurity, emerging technologies, global health, and climate change. We discussed our common goals for driving ambitious global action to address the climate crisis. And the Climate Leaders Summit that I hosted in April was in part about helping drive forward the momentum toward the critical COP26 that the UK will host in Glasgow later this year. We talked about the shared sacrifices our service members have made, bravely serving side by side in Afghanistan for close to 20 years. The UK was with us from the start, as they always are, equally committed to rooting out the terrorist threat. And now we're coordinating our withdrawal together. And of course, we talked about how our two nations can together lead the global fight against COVID-19. That's been a major focus of the G7 under British leadership, particularly in focusing and coordinating our resources to help vaccinate the world. And tonight, I'm making an historic announcement regarding America's leadership in the fight against COVID-19. America knows firsthand the tragedies of this pandemic. We've had more people die in the United States than anywhere in the world. Nearly 600,000 of our fellow Americans, moms, dads, sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, grandparents, more deaths from COVID-19 in the United States than from World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, and 9/11 combined. We know the tragedy. We also know the path to recovery. The United States has now vaccinated 64% of our adults with at least one shot. Just 4.5 months ago, we were at only 5% with one shot. It took a Herculean effort on the part of our government to manage one of the biggest and I would say most complicated logistical challenges in our history. It took the ingenuity of scientists, building on decades of research to develop a vaccine. It took the full capacity of American companies manufacturing and delivering the vaccines around the clock. And as a result, we have the lowest number of daily deaths since the first day of this pandemic. Our economy is rebounding. Our vaccination program has already saved tens of thousands of lives, with that count growing each day, and has allowed millions of Americans get back to living their lives. And from the beginning of my presidency, we've been clear-eyed that we need to attack this virus globally as well. This is about our responsibility, our humanitarian obligation to save as many lives as we can, and our responsibility to our values. We value the inherent dignity of all people. In times of trouble, Americans reach out to offer help and offer a helping hand. That's who we are. And when we see people hurting and suffering anywhere around the world, we seek to help as best we can. That's why under both Republican and Democratic presidents, the United States has made transformative commitments to bolster global health. Commitments under President Bush like PEPFAR, which changed the global fight against HIV/AIDS. And in this moment, Our values call on us to do everything that we can to vaccinate the world against COVID-19. It's also in America's self-interest. As long as the virus rages elsewhere, there is a risk of new mutations that could threaten our people. We know that raging COVID-19 in other countries holds back global growth, raises instability, and weakens governments. And as we've seen in the United States, with evidence clear day by day, the key to reopening and growing economies is to vaccinate your people. Our vaccination program has helped the American economy begin to recover from the worst economic crisis in a century. Over 2 million new jobs created just in the last 4 months since I've become president. An historic decline in long-term unemployment. Businesses reopening, and a projected economic growth of 6.9%, the fastest in nearly 4 decades in America. Just as the American economy is recovering, it is in all of our interest to have the global economy begin to recover as well. And that won't happen unless we can get this pandemic under control worldwide. That's why, as I said in my address to the joint session of Congress in April, America will be the arsenal of vaccines in our fight against COVID-19, just as America was the arsenal of democracy during World War II. Over the past 4 months, we've taken a number of steps toward this historic effort. We have contributed more than any nation to COVAX, a collective global effort that is delivering COVID-19 vaccines across the world. We've supported manufacturing efforts abroad through our partnerships with Japan, India, and Australia, known as the Quad. We've shared doses with our neighbors, Canada and Mexico. And in addition, 3 weeks ago, with America's vaccines supply secured, and with confidence we have enough vaccines to cover every American who wants one, we announced that we would donate 80 million doses of our own vaccine in-house now to supply the world by the end of June. Many of these doses are shipping to countries around the world as we speak. And today, we're taking a major step that will supercharge the global fight against this pandemic. In my direction, the United States will purchase an additional 500 million doses from Pfizer vaccine, that will donate nearly 100 low and lower middle income countries. They will be the beneficiaries. Let me say that again. The United States will purchase 500 million doses of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine to donate to nearly 100 nations that are in dire need in the fight against this pandemic. That's a historic step, the largest single purchase and donation of COVID-19 vaccines by any single country ever. Importantly, this is the mRNA vaccine, which has proven to be extremely effective against COVID-19 and every known variant of that virus thus far. These 500 million vaccines will start to be shipped in August, as quickly as they roll off the manufacturing line. 200 million of these doses will be delivered this year, 2021, and 300 million more will be delivered in the first half of 2022. Let me be clear. Just as with the 80 million doses we previously announced, the United States is providing these 500,000 doses with no strings attached. Let me say it again, with no strings attached.
So that's U.S. President Joe Biden making an announcement of the United States going to give more doses to poorer countries. Remember, the World Health Organization has been talking about this, vaccine nationalism and inequity. SABC foreign editor Sophie Mokoena joins us now to recap on this, a very important development. Sophie, so just tell us how many and what the impact of this is likely to be.
Well, of course, it's a big announcement because you know that developing countries are currently struggling to access vaccines. We know that this morning, the African CDC was indicating that they are currently struggling to get vaccines, particularly because the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is not available. You know that the Food and Drug administration in the United States of America took a decision to stop the rollout of the Johnson & Johnson. And I think this announcement, 500 million doses to developing countries, it will really, really come handy, particularly to the sub-Sahara region.
So the importance of this announcement being made now, Sophie, is that, of course, Joe Biden is on an international trip. He's at the G7 summit. So his gesture, do you think, is more likely to be followed by his other counterparts? Will he be able to convince them to heed the WHO's call?
That's what WHO has been calling for, a leader who can come up and perhaps put a strong spirited fight to donate vaccines, but also to put the dollars on the table to assist the COVAX facility. And of course, you know, competition has started. We are going to see other countries coming forward, and this will start to unlock access to vaccine for poorer nations and those developing countries.
So Joe Biden, he's obviously likely to have some bilaterals on the side. What do you think will be his main message during these bilaterals, and with whom?
Today he met the host, that is Prime Minister Boris Johnson. They discussed issues that ranges from democracy, peace and security around the world, NATO, and of course, trade and investment between the two countries. Let's take a listen at what Boris Johnson had to say after meeting President Joe Biden.
The relationship between the UK and the US is the relationship between North America and Europe, which really sort of is incarnated in that Atlantic Charter of 1941, which we've renewed today between me and President Biden, is of massive, massive strategic importance for the prosperity, the security of the world, for all the things we believe in together: democracy, human rights, the rule of law. The US and the UK stick up for those two things together. So it's incredibly important that we should affirm that. And the talks were great. They went on for a long time. We covered a huge range of subjects. And it's wonderful to listen to the Biden administration and to Joe Biden, because there's so much that they want to do together with us, from security, NATO, to climate change. And it's fantastic. It's a breath of fresh air, a lot of things they want to do together.
Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, talking about the meeting with Joe Biden, talking about there's a lot that they shared together and they are prepared to work together.
So, Sophie, after the G7 summit, Joe Biden then has a number of other engagements in Europe. Take us through the most important ones.
I think the important ones are the two. One, he is going to Brussels. In Brussels, he's going to meet with Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO. You know that during the administration of Donald Trump, the relations between the United States of America and NATO were very frosty. And we hope that he will also talk about how America is going to strengthen NATO. And we believe that he will also make an announcement in terms of how much he is going to donate to strengthen NATO. From there, he will be going to Switzerland. In Switzerland, a very important meeting with the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. And yesterday, when he was addressing members of the military of the United States of America on arrival in England, he spoke about a message that he wants to send to Putin, that they will have to cooperate with the rest of the world, but also ensure that democracy prevail in Russia. I think that statement wouldn't augur well with Putin, and we'll see when he meets Putin in Switzerland next week.
All right, thank you very much, Sophie Mokoena, SABC foreign editor, and of course she would have told you as well, if you had more time, that the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres will be there at the G7 summit. So earlier on, Joe Biden, the US president, announcing that the US is going to donate something like $500,000 doses, 500 million doses rather, just to the developing countries. And at 32 million doses, Africa itself accounts for just under 1% of the over 2.1 billion doses that are administered globally. And as we speak, African countries have already used something like 80% of the doses that they've received from the COVAX facility. So there is a need for urgency for this.